Boštjan Kolarič represents the same institute in Ljubljana, Slovenia, and this presenter is a lawyer, and the topic of his presentation is crime committed by Yugoslav communist regime, legal perspective. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. The situation in Slovenia was extremely complex during World War II, as my colleague Renato presented in his paper. In years 1941 to 1945, there were different historical phenomena and processes. The occupation, the resistance, the partisan fight, the communist revolution, the civil war, the revolution of institutions, the fight against communists, the fight against partisans, and the collaboration. As we heard, during the World War II, the armed resistance against German and Italian occupying forces in Slovenia has been controlled by the Slovenian Liberation Front. Only a part of a Slovenian population joined the Slovenian Liberation Front, which was led by the Communist Party. The Communist Party of Slovenia, as a part of the Yugoslav Communist Party, focused on the communist revolution and monopolization of the resistance against the occupiers, much more than to unite different forces within the common resistance movement. In spring 1945, the end of the war was approaching. The German army was retreating from the Greek territory, and different armies were fighting for the main communications. Tito ordered regroupings of partisans' forces as he planned to seize Trieste and Primorska. In the north, the partisans' troops seized the southern part of the Austrian Carinthia, but had to retreat as the Allies, meet in Moscow in October 1943, had promised Austria to keep its borders. The eastern part of the Slovenian territory, Prekmurje, was seized by the Soviet Union troops. In these final weeks of the war, civilian refugees, in fear of the communist revenge, were moving across the Slovenian territory. They were followed by the German troops and miscellaneous Yugoslav troops, the Slovenian Home Guards, Chetniks, and Croatian Ustaši. The differentiation should be made between the two phases of the worst communist repression after the World War II. The first period indicates an obvious suppression of human rights. The destroying of the Home Guards and other members of armed anti-communist and partly collaboration units, mass killings, elimination of some most exposed anti-communists and bigger entrepreneurs, the annihilation of the German minority on the Slovenian territory. Then followed the second period, from August 1945 until the middle of the 50s. In this period, the state was based on murder, robbery or legal collective theft, violence against the body, dignity and other essential human rights, fear, deception and lies. I will focus on the first period, the events that took place in May 1945. At the end of the war, being aware of the partisan guerrilla advancement and following an unsuccessful attempt to establish their own parliament and government in the beginning of May 1945, the political opponents of the Communist Party, together with many civilians, about 6,000, withdrew to Carinthia in Austria. They entered the occupied territory of the British 5th Corps of the 8th Army. The retreat of the Home Guards from Slovenia to Austria took place between May 8 and May 13. The British settled them in Ventrisco Polje, near Klagenfurt, in military and separate civilian camps. The British authorities began to return the Slovenians, home guards and civilians, to the communist Yugoslavia on May 24. The British assured them that they would only be taken to the camps in Italy. 11,850 Slovenian soldiers and about 600 civilians were forcibly repatriated. Although the Slovenian anti-communist military and political leadership soon found out that the returned Home Guards members and civilians had been transferred to Yugoslavia, they did not act effectively, as they were probably guided by the almost blind trust in the British political and military authorities. We could imply it was beyond their imagination that domobranci and civilians could be extradited to the Yugoslav communist authorities by the authorities of the country with a rich democratic tradition. The question, who in fact gave the order to repatriate the Slovenians to the communist police and military units, is still open. Therefore, the question of the person or persons responsible for repatriation remain open. So the Slovenian Home Guards and civilians were put in trains and trucks, taken to Slovenia, imprisoned in the numerous communist concentration camps. They were divided into three groups: Group A, B, and C. A was juveniles, B mobilized from 1945, and C the rest. All from the Group C and the majority from the Group B were soon killed. Only in the concentration camp of Teharje near Celje, 400 juveniles were imprisoned. They were released after August 1945, although many of them never returned home. They were killed on their way home by various groups and militias, which were incited by the communist authorities. Immediately after the return of repatriated, the mass slaughter began, carried out by the secret political police, OZNA. Prisoners were led to mass killings fields and usually shot in the neck and there thrown into the karst caves, natural abysses, mines, tank ditches, or in the forest. The Slovenian Governmental Commission for Settlement of the Hidden Mass Graveyards has so far found more than 630 hidden mass grave sites on the territory of Slovenia, most of them in the period 2004 and 2008. Even during the war, more than 12,000 people became victims of the civil war on the Slovenian territory, including more than 5,000 killed civilians and prisoners of war after the end of the World War II in the spring of 1945. I would like to add that among the massacred in Slovenia, without any trials, were not only the Slovenians, but also Croats, Serbs, Montenegros, etc. Not only soldiers, but women, elderly people, wounded people, juveniles too. On March 2009, one of the biggest murder sites of unarmed people after Second World War, estimated 3,000 victims, were found in an abandoned mine. This mine is called Hudayama. If we translate, this is a cave of evil. Responding to crimes against humanity committed in the Slovenian in 1945. To be classified as a crimes against humanity, all crimes must satisfy particular common criteria. First, the conduct must be committed as a part of a widespread or systematic attack direct against the civilian population, and the second, the perpetrator has to know that. Well, no judicial sentences for communist crimes have been so far delivered in the Republic of Slovenia. The lack of sentences can be explained through very few prosecutions and general reluctance to pursue criminal or even civil responsibility of those persons allegedly responsible for totalitarian crimes. There have only been 2 cases brought for alleged totalitarian communist crimes before the Slovenian criminal courts after 1990. The most notorious was the case Prosecutor versus Mitja Ribičić in 2006. Mitja Ribičić was the first former official of the Slovenian Communist Party to be charged in Slovenia for crimes against humanity. Documents found in the Slovene National Archive reportedly alleged that in 1945 Mitja Ribičić helped draft a list of 270 people for execution. He was a deputy head of the Slovenian branch of the Yugoslav secret police under Tito. He worked as a delegate until 1983 in the Slovenian Socialist Parliament, in the Yugoslav Federal Parliament, and he was a president of the Yugoslav Communist Party. The case failed as there was, according to the investigation court, not enough evidence. Finally, I will finish my contribution with this. I would, in short, like to present the latest initiative for setting up a British-Slovene Historical Commission that would collect and assess all relevant documents and testimonies and prepare a common report on the events of May 1945. The initiative was formed by those attending the Mass of Reparation in Great Macedon in Great Britain in October 2019. The Mass was dedicated to the memory of the Slovenians who were forcibly repatriated by the British Army from the camp of Vetrin in May 1945. The initiative has been formed by historians and the representatives of the political and church life of both countries. Study Center for National Reconciliation immediately started the campaign to collect signatures. 1,600 signatures were handed over to the British government at Downing Street 9. We are waiting for the reply and the opportunity to hand over the initiative and the signatures to the Slovenian government as well. We felt this is, besides other necessary steps, an opportunity to make some progress in the reconciliation process through the historical research and assessment of the available historical evidence. Namely, the Slovenian society has to reach an agreement on how to tackle the atrocities of the civil war that was going on from 1941. If the crimes against humanity committed by the Slovenians against the Slovenians are not addressed appropriately, they will remain on the dark side of our collective memories of the Slovenians. Thank you.